The Martian Separatist. Chapter 1. Red Hands. The recycler is screaming again. I wedge my body deeper into the service shaft, metal edges biting into my shoulders as caustic steam hisses around me. My filter mask offers minimal protection, but it's better than breathing the ammonia-laced vapor directly. 300 people in lower Block D depend on this atmospheric processor, and right now it's 30 seconds from catastrophic failure. Status burn? The supervisor's voice crackles through my earpiece. Almost there. I twist awkwardly, stretching my arm toward the coupling that's worked itself loose. My fingertips brush metal still hot enough to sear flesh. I pull back instinctively, then force myself forward again. There's no room to hesitate. Block D's oxygen levels dropping below minimum threshold, the supervisor warns. 2 minutes until emergency evacuation protocols. I grit my teeth. Not happening. If they evacuate Block D, that's 300 people crammed into already overcrowded emergency shelters. More importantly, it's my mother and our neighbors suffering because UTA can't be bothered to replace 30-year-old equipment. My hand closes around the coupling. Pain shoots up my arm as the metal burns through my worn glove, but I don't let go. 3 quick turns and the connection stabilizes. The recycler's scream softens to a whine, then settles into its familiar rumble. The steam dissipates enough for me to see the readout panel flashing green. Recycler stabilized, I report, already backing out of the shaft. Tell Block D they can keep breathing. As I emerge from the maintenance hatch, I peel off my glove to examine the burn. A perfect ring marks my palm, already blistering, just another scar to join the collection. More concerning is the familiar red oxide stain spreading across my skin, the chemical signature of Martian maintenance work that never quite washes off. There's a reason they call me Rusty. I glance up at the recycler monitors. The levels are holding, but barely. This whole system needs replacing, not patching. But I know what the supervisor will say when I file my report. UTA doesn't allocate resources for non-essential upgrades in the lower levels. Never mind that we can't breathe without it. The transport tube connecting Maintenance Sector 7 to the lower levels rattles ominously as it carries me home. Through scratched plexiglass windows, I watch the stark contrast of Olympus City unfold beneath me. The executive dome gleams in the distance, a perfect bubble of carefully cultivated Earth-like conditions. Real trees, real grass, swimming pools, and fountains that run continuously despite the critical water conservation mandate announced last week. From this height, I can see UTA employees strolling leisurely along garden paths, their blue uniforms pristine. The tube curves downward, and the view changes dramatically. The lower levels spread out below, a warren of prefabricated housing blocks stacked on top of each other, connected by a maze of pressurized walkways and makeshift additions. Solar panels and oxygen gardens crowd every available surface, rigged up by residents trying to supplement the meager resources allocated by UTA. This is Mars as we actually live it, cramped, struggling, and perpetually on the edge of system failure. This is the reality behind UTA's glossy promotional videos about humanity's greatest colonial achievement. Routine inspection ahead, announces an automated voice through the transport speakers. Please have identification ready. I suppress a groan as the transport slows. The checkpoints have doubled in the past month. Another sign of UTA's tightening grip. The transport doors open to reveal 2 security officers flanking the exit. One is the standard UTA model, earthborn, rigid posture, contempt barely concealed behind professional detachment. The other is Sergeant Marcus Webb. Identification, demands the earthborn officer, not bothering to look me in the eye. I hold out my wrist for the scanner, the red stains on my hands immediately marking me as lower-level maintenance. Just finished a double shift. Recycler failure in Block D. The officer grunts, barely glancing at the verification that pings on his screen, but Webb's gaze lingers on my burned palm. "You should get that treated," he says. I'm surprised enough by the comment to actually look at him. Webb is different from most UTA security, born on an orbital station rather than Earth, which makes him slightly less alien to us ground dwellers. I've encountered him at checkpoints before, noticed how he actually pays attention to the people passing through rather than just processing them like goods. Medical treatment for maintenance workers requires a priority clearance form, I reply, the acid in my voice unmistakable. Burns under 7 centimeters in diameter are classified as minor workplace incidents. Webb holds my gaze. New directive came through yesterday. Maintenance efficiency is down 17%. All injuries affecting technical staff are now eligible for treatment at district clinics. How generous of UTA to notice we work better with intact hands, I say, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. The earthborn officer scowls. Move along, lower level. I step through the checkpoint, feeling Webb's eyes on my back. I'm not sure what to make of him. A UTA officer who occasionally acts like Martians are human beings isn't necessarily an ally. Best case, he's a decent man working for an indecent system. Worst case, it's a tactic, a friendly face to encourage compliance. Either way, I don't have the luxury of finding out. The smell hits me as soon as I enter our housing unit, antiseptic barely masking the underlying odor of sickness. My mother's cough echoes from her bedroom, a harsh, racking sound that seems to tear through her body. "Ma, I'm home." I drop my tool bag by the door and head straight to her room. Moira Byrne sits propped up on her narrow bed, oxygen mask covering the lower half of her face. Her skin has the grayish tinge that's become increasingly common over the past few weeks, but her eyes brighten when she sees me. "You're late," she says, pulling the mask aside briefly. Worried me. Recycler emergency in Block D. I carefully keep my burned hand out of her sight. She doesn't need more to worry about. "How was your breathing today?" She waves dismissively. "Same as yesterday. Better than tomorrow will be." A dark joke, but not inaccurate. 15 years of filter maintenance without proper protective equipment has filled her lungs with chemical particulates. The prognosis is always the same: gradual, irreversible decline. "Did you eat?" I ask, noticing the untouched meal packet on her side table. "Not hungry." She eyes me critically. "You look tired, Kieran." She's the only one who still calls me by my actual name instead of Rusty. A small reminder of a time before UTA branded us all with our functions rather than our identities. "I'm fine." I pull the single chair in the room closer to her bed. "Any word about Liam?" Her face tightens. "Nothing new. Still in processing at Acidalia mining camp, according to the system. My brother has been in processing for 3 weeks now, ever since UTA security picked him up for being in mid-level after curfew. A 19-year-old caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, sentenced to 6 months in the mining operations. We haven't been allowed to communicate with him directly." I'll try submitting another inquiry tomorrow, I promise, though we both know it will be ignored like all the others. My mother's hand finds mine, the unburned one, and squeezes weakly. There's something else, she says, her voice dropping. Got a notice while you were at work. Medical review for all respiratory treatment plans. They're reassessing necessity criteria. My stomach knots instantly. Reassessing is UTA code for cutting. The timing isn't coincidental. Every increase in MLF activity is followed by tightening restrictions on lower-level resources. Collective punishment disguised as administrative adjustment. They can't just cut off your treatment, I insist, knowing even as I say it that they absolutely can. Your condition is documented. It's work-related. They're liable. She laughs, triggering another coughing fit. When it subsides, she looks at me with weary eyes. Liability only matters when someone has the power to enforce it, Kieran. The truth of this hangs between us, undeniable. On Mars, justice flows downward like water, which means the lower levels have been in a drought for generations. A notification chimes on my wrist device. Fiona, I say, seeing the name flash on the screen. Says she's in the area and wants to know if she can stop by. My mother's expression lightens. You should see her. Been too long. I hesitate. You need to rest. I need to not feel like I'm keeping my son from having a life. She gestures at the door. Go. Invite her up. I want to see her too. 20 minutes later, Fiona Reeves is sitting on our worn sofa, looking simultaneously familiar and strange. We grew up together in these same housing blocks, but her path diverged from mine when she scored high enough on aptitude tests to earn a mid-level administrative position. Now she wears the muted gray uniform of a UTA coordinator rather than the stained work clothes of the lower levels. Your mother looks worse, she says quietly once we've moved to the kitchen, ostensibly to make tea. The new treatment isn't helping? There is no new treatment. I keep my voice low. UTA doesn't waste resources developing cures for conditions that only affect lower-level workers. They just manage the decline until... I cut myself off, unable to finish the sentence. Fiona touches my arm, and I notice how clean her hands are. No red stains, no chemical burns. I'm sorry, Rusty. I've been trying to find options through my department, but specialized care requires executive authorization. I nod, not trusting myself to speak. This is our reality, begging for scraps of care from the same people who caused the damage. How's the coordinator position? I ask finally, changing the subject. Something flickers in her expression. Caution, perhaps. It has its advantages. I see more of how the system works, who makes decisions, where the vulnerabilities are. The way she emphasizes the last part catches my attention. Fiona has always been careful with her words, but there's something deliberate in how she's speaking now. Sounds fascinating, I reply neutrally, watching her. She holds my gaze for a moment longer than necessary. We should catch up properly sometime, somewhere we can really talk. She glances around the apartment meaningfully. It's common knowledge that UTA monitors lower-level housing, though no one knows exactly how extensive the surveillance is. Sure, I agree, curiosity piqued despite my exhaustion. Name the place. There's a maintenance hub in Section 12 that's scheduled for inspection tomorrow, she says casually. Around shift change. Might be a good place to cross paths. Section 12 is nowhere near her coordination office. This is no casual meeting she's suggesting. I'll see if I can fit it into my schedule, I say, matching her casual tone. She smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. Do that, for old time's sake. The next day, my supervisor assigns me to repair moisture collection systems in the executive dome. It's a rare assignment for lower-level maintenance. They usually prefer to keep us out of sight, but the specialized systems require experienced technicians. Don't talk to anyone, my supervisor warns. Don't look directly at anyone. Just fix the system and get out. The transport to the executive dome passes through 3 separate security checkpoints, each more rigorous than the last. My tools are scanned, my identification verified, my work order examined multiple times. By the time I actually reach the dome, an hour of my allocated repair time has vanished. The difference hits me immediately as I step from the airlock. The air is different here, richer, more humid, carrying the scent of actual plants rather than the sterile, recycled atmosphere of the lower levels. The lighting mimics Earth's sunlight spectrum instead of the harsh efficiency lighting we live under. Even the sound is different. The constant mechanical background noise of the lower levels replaced by the gentle ambient sounds of water features and climate control systems designed to be soothing rather than merely functional. A UTA official in a pristine blue uniform meets me at the maintenance entrance. "You're late," he says, not bothering to introduce himself. The executive residential sector has been experiencing reduced humidity for 12 hours. It's affecting the garden features. I think of the water rations in the lower levels that were cut by 20% last week, of children lining up with recycled containers to collect their family's allocation, of the strict penalties for exceeding usage limits. "I'll fix it right away," I say, keeping my eyes down as instructed. The moisture collection system serves the residential garden area, an extravagant use of space and resources that provides Earth-born executives with a familiar environment. As I work on the collection coils, I catch glimpses of UTA families strolling along paths bordered by actual grass and trees. Children run through sprinklers that use more water in an hour than my entire block is allocated in a day. Disgraceful, isn't it? I almost drop my tool at the unexpected voice. A woman in a medical uniform stands a few meters away watching me work. Her uniform identifies her as Dr. Talia Mbeki, and her accent marks her as Earthborn, but she's looking at me directly. A violation of the unspoken code that renders lower-level workers invisible. "The collection system?" I ask cautiously. "I'll have it fixed soon." She gives me a knowing look. I meant the disparity. The executives complain about garden humidity while the lower levels have their water rations cut again. I remain silent, focusing on the coil I'm repairing. Engaging with her observation could be a trap. University of Texas at Austin has been known to test worker loyalty through staged conversations. "You don't trust me," she observes. Smart, but unnecessary in this case. I run the outreach clinic in Lower Block F. I've heard of her, an Earth-born doctor who actually treats lower-level patients rather than just documenting their decline. Some call her a saint. Others say she's gathering data for UTA on working-class health patterns. I've never been sure which is true. "Almost done here," I say, neither confirming nor denying recognition. She steps closer, lowering her voice. "Your mother is Moira Byrne, isn't she? Respiratory condition, chemical exposure." My hands freeze on the coil. "How do you—" "I reviewed the respiratory treatment reassessment list this morning. Her name is on it." Dr. Mbeki glances around to ensure we're still alone. They're planning to discontinue treatment for Category 3 and 4 exposure cases, claiming resource efficiency requirements. My throat tightens. Category 4 is the most severe classification. My mother's classification. When? I managed to ask. End of the month, but I might be able to recategorize some patients under the emergency provision clause. She hands me a small data chip. Bring her to this location tomorrow. I can't promise anything, but I'll try. Before I can respond, she walks away, disappearing among the artificial earth trees that consume water my people aren't allowed to drink. I finish the repair on autopilot, my mind racing. By the time I reach the main system terminal to log my work, I've made a decision. I plug in my maintenance override and access the environmental control subroutines, not just for the moisture collection system I was assigned to fix, but for the entire executive dome. A quick search confirms what I suspected. The garden features, Dr. Mbeki mentioned, receive more daily water allocation than 3 entire lower-level blocks combined. With a few keystrokes, I could redistribute that allocation. It would take days for anyone to trace it back to this maintenance call. My finger hovers over the command sequence, temptation mounting. Then I notice something else on the screen. A restricted file labeled Automation Implementation Phase 1. It's not something I should be able to see from this terminal. A security oversight. Curiosity overrides caution. I open the file. My blood runs cold as I scan the contents. Detailed plans for the complete automation of lower-level maintenance systems. Schematics for robots designed to replace human workers. Implementation timeline showing 90% reduction in maintenance staff within 8 months. I download the file to my personal device without thinking, then quickly erase any trace of my access. This isn't just another resource reduction. This is extinction for people like me. For entire blocks of workers whose only value to UTA is their ability to keep these systems running. Section 12's maintenance hub is deserted when I arrive, exactly as Fiona promised. I find her waiting in the monitoring room, her coordinator uniform exchanged for nondescript clothing that wouldn't attract attention in the lower levels. "You came," she says, relief evident in her voice. "I wasn't sure you would." "What is this about, Fiona?" I ask directly, exhaustion and stress stripping away any pretense of casual conversation. She studies me for a moment, then asks, "How much do you know about the MLF, the Martian Liberation Front?" The question alone is dangerous. UTA has detained people for less. I know they're classified as terrorists by UTA, I answer carefully. I know activity has increased in the past few months. "And what do you think of them?" she presses. I think of my mother's declining health, of Liam in the mining camp, of the water flowing freely in the executive dome while we measure hours in precious milliliters, of the automation plans I discovered today. I think people with nothing left to lose eventually stop caring about the rules of a game that's rigged against them, I say finally. She nods, seemingly satisfied with my answer. The MLF isn't what UTA claims. Yes, there are militant factions, but at its core, it's about Martian self-determination, about ending a system where Earth corporations decide who lives and dies based on quarterly profit margins. "Why are you telling me this?" I ask, though I'm beginning to understand. "Because I've been working with them for almost a year now," she admits. "And because we need people like you, people who understand the systems that keep us dependent, people with access." I laugh without humor. "Access? I'm just a maintenance worker, one they're planning to replace with robots soon anyway." Fiona's eyes widen. "What do you mean?" I show her the file I downloaded, watch her face pale as she reviews the automation plans. This would devastate the lower levels, she whispers. Thousands of families with no income, no purpose in UTA's system. Exactly, I say. Cheaper to replace us than keep us alive. She closes the file, her expression hardening with resolve. This is why we need to act now. The MLF has been gathering intelligence, building networks. We're planning something significant, but we need people who can help us understand and access critical systems. I think of my mother's face when I left this morning, of the medication she's about to lose, of Liam somewhere in the harsh conditions of the mining camp, of the countless others like us, generations of Martians used for their labor and discarded when no longer profitable. What would you need me to do? I ask, not committing yet, but not refusing either. Information, initially, she says. Schematics, access codes, schedules. Later, perhaps more, depending on how things develop. The implications are clear. She's inviting me to become part of the resistance, to risk what little security I have, to become what UTA would call a terrorist. I need time to think, I tell her. She nods, pressing a small communication device into my hand. 3 days. Then contact me through this if you're in. It's secure, untraceable. As I turn to leave, she adds, Rusty? Whatever you decide, destroy that automation file. If they trace it to you... She doesn't need to finish the sentence. We both know what happens to lower-level workers who access restricted information. I'm halfway home when the alarm sounds, a piercing wail that echoes through the transport tubes. The automated system announces, Security alert in all lower-level sectors. Mandatory identification check in progress. Remain at your current location. Panic ripples through the crowded transport. This isn't a routine check. Something has happened. Through the windows, I can see UTA security forces converging on the lower levels below, their vehicles moving with ominous purpose between the housing blocks. This is a major operation. My hand closes around the communication device Fiona gave me, suddenly feeling like it's burning a hole in my pocket. Has the MLF done something? Is this connected to our meeting? The transport doors open, and security officers board, scanning each passenger. I keep my expression neutral, my posture relaxed despite the hammering of my heart. When they reach me, I present my identification without being asked, the perfect picture of compliance. The officer barely glances at my ID before moving on. Whatever they're looking for, a routine maintenance worker doesn't match the profile. When the transport finally reaches my stop, the scene outside is chaos. UTA officers are conducting door-to-door searches in several housing blocks, including mine. Residents stand in confused groups, watching as their neighbors are questioned and sometimes taken away. I approach carefully, trying to understand what's happening without drawing attention. An older man from my block notices me and moves closer. They're looking for MLF sympathizers, he mutters under his breath. Got a list of names. Your block is next for searching. Cold dread washes over me. I think of the automation file on my device, of the communication device from Fiona, of my meeting with her just hours ago. More importantly, I think of my mother, alone in our unit with UTA security about to break down the door, of the medication she depends on that could be interpreted as illegally obtained, of how vulnerable she would be if I were detained. I have to warn her, have to get back before they do. But as I watch UTA officers dragging people from their homes, people whose only crime might be a careless word or a suspicious connection, I realize that this moment has stripped away any illusion of choice. The line has already been crossed. I am already part of this fight, whether I chose it or not. With UTA security occupied with the housing blocks ahead of mine, I slip into the maintenance tunnels that run beneath the lower levels, the invisible infrastructure that I've navigated my entire working life. UTA executives rarely remember these tunnels exist, much less map them completely. They're our space, the domain of red-stained hands like mine. I move quickly through the darkness, the path instinctive after years of repairs. My destination isn't my housing block. Going there directly would be suicide. Instead, I head for an access point near Block F, where Dr. Mbeki runs her clinic. If anyone can help my mother, it's her. As I navigate the tunnels, I activate the communication device Fiona gave me. "It's rusty," I say when the connection establishes. "I'm in. Tell me what to do." Chapter 2. New Territory. The service tunnels beneath Olympus City have always been my domain, but tonight they feel different. The familiar network of pipes and conduits that I've navigated my entire working life now serves a new purpose. Not maintenance, but resistance. I move with practiced efficiency through the narrow passages, my footsteps barely audible over the constant hum of machinery. Every few minutes I pause to listen for pursuit, though I know UTA security rarely ventures into these spaces. To Earthborn officers, these tunnels are simply infrastructure, the invisible veins and arteries that keep their pristine dome habitable. They don't see them as what they've become for us, an alternate circulatory system for Mars itself, one beyond their control. My wrist device vibrates with an incoming message from Fiona. "Northeast Junction, 3 levels down. Second hatch. Hurry." I quicken my pace, counting access ladders until I reach the correct level. The hatch Fiona mentioned is unmarked on official schematics, one of many maintenance oversights that exist throughout the system. Small acts of rebellion by generations of workers who understood the value of spaces unknown to those who would monitor our every movement. I rap my knuckles against the metal in the pattern Fiona taught me earlier. 3 quick, 2 slow. The hatch slides open, revealing not just Fiona but 4 others in the small chamber beyond. Their faces tense with suspicion as I enter. "This is him?" asks a tall woman with a jagged scar running from temple to jaw. Her posture radiates authority, and the others seem to orient themselves around her presence. Fiona nods. "Kieran Byrne." Goes by Rusty. Best atmospheric systems technician in the lower levels. "And now UTA's hunting him," adds a wiry man leaning against the far wall. His accent marks him as from the Eastern Domes, another working-class Martian district. "Bold move, contacting us during a crackdown." "They're not hunting me specifically," I clarify. "Not yet, anyway. They're conducting a sweep of suspected MLF sympathizers in my housing block." "Which means you don't have much time," the scarred woman says. She steps forward, extending her hand. "I'm May. This operation answers to me." I notice she doesn't offer a last name. Smart. "Quinn," says the wiry man, with a nod instead of a handshake. A muscular woman with close-cropped hair introduces herself simply as Dev, while the fourth, a younger man barely out of his teens, gives his name as Elias. "What exactly is happening up there?" Elias asks, nervousness evident in his voice. "The alert channels are going crazy. UTA security is conducting door-to-door searches," I explain. "They claim they're looking for MLF sympathizers, but it seems more extensive than usual." May and Quinn exchange glances. "They're responding to acidalia," Quinn says after a moment. We hit their communication hub last night. Didn't expect this level of reaction. You did what? The words escape before I can censor them. Disabled the primary relay station connecting the mining operations to Central Command, May explains, watching my reaction carefully. Nothing violent, just enough disruption to create confusion in their security protocols. I connect the dots immediately. The mining operations, where my brother is being held. Fiona steps closer. That's right. The communication disruption should create a window in their security monitoring. The MLF has people inside who can use that window to improve conditions for the workers there. Including your brother, Quinn adds. I look at each of their faces, trying to process what they're telling me. These people, strangers until moments ago, targeted a UTA facility specifically to help prisoners, including Liam. Yet their actions have also triggered the security sweep that might now endanger my mother. I need to get my mother somewhere safe, I say, refocusing on my immediate concern. If UTA finds that automation file on my device, or if they trace my maintenance access. Already handled, May interrupts. While you were making your way here, we sent someone to escort your mother to a secure location. Dr. Mbeki is with her. The knot in my chest loosens slightly. How did you? We've been watching you for months, Rusty, Fiona admits. Even before I approached you, your technical skills, your access privileges, your history, you've been on our recruitment list for some time. We know about your mother, your brother, the automation plans you discovered. I'm not sure whether to feel relieved or disturbed by this revelation. So what happens now? May gestures to a schematic displayed on the chamber wall, a detailed map of Olympus City's water distribution system. Now, you help us strike back in a way that matters, not just symbolic actions, but something the lower levels will feel immediately. The water rationing, I realize, studying the schematic. Quinn nods. UTA cuts our water while the executive dome has decorative fountains. We're going to correct that imbalance. How? I ask, already examining the distribution nodes, searching for vulnerabilities in a system I've helped maintain for years. That's where you come in, Fiona says. We need someone who understands how to reconfigure the allocation protocols without triggering emergency shutdowns. I step closer to the schematic, my maintenance training automatically identifying control points and security measures. It's possible, I admit, but you'd need someone with primary authorization codes, the kind only UTA engineers possess. May smiles, the expression transforming her scarred face from intimidating to almost playful. Like these? She holds up a data chip. Where did you get those? I ask, unable to hide my surprise. Let's just say not all Earthborn technicians agree with UTA policies, Dev says, speaking up for the first time. Some of them have Martian friends, lovers, children. The implication is clear. The MLF's reach extends beyond the lower levels, beyond even native Martians. The thought is simultaneously encouraging and unnerving. If we do this, I say slowly, UTA will know it's deliberate. They'll come looking for who's responsible. They already think we're terrorists, Elias points out. This won't change that. But it will change how the lower levels see us, May counters. Right now, many still believe UTA's propaganda, that we're just violent extremists. But when water flows freely in their homes for the first time in years, when their children can drink without rationing, they'll know who truly represents Martian interests. I think of my neighbors in the lower levels, hard-working people who keep their heads down, follow the rules, hoping that compliance will eventually earn them better treatment. People like my parents once were, before my father's death and my mother's illness stripped away that illusion. I can do it, I decide, but we'll need to access a primary distribution terminal, and those are heavily monitored. Quinn grins. Already have a plan for that. But first, you need to learn a few things about operating in the shadows. The next 3 days pass in a blur of activity and new information. By day, I continue my maintenance work, careful to appear normal despite the increased security presence throughout the lower levels. By night, I descend into the tunnels to meet with my new MLF cell. May trains me in counter-surveillance techniques, how to spot the cameras UTA has hidden throughout Olympus City, how to move through their blind spots, how to detect if I'm being followed. Quinn teaches me the basics of encrypted communication and how to recognize UTA monitoring algorithms in the city's network. Never use the same route twice, he advises as we practice navigating through the tunnels. Establish patterns, then break them. Become unpredictable. Dev's lessons focus on more physical skills, how to disable security drones without triggering their distress signals, how to override electronic locks, how to apply precise force to sensitive equipment without damaging surrounding systems. You're not building a bomb, she explains, watching me carefully measure chemical compounds for a disruption device. You're creating a precisely calibrated tool. Respect it. Elias, despite his youth, proves to be an expert in UTA security protocols. He shows me how their patrol schedules operate, where the gaps exist, how to create distractions when needed. They're undermanned and overconfident, he says, displaying UTA security deployment maps on his device. Been that way since they automated half their force with drones. Machines are predictable if you understand their programming. Through it all, Fiona serves as my anchor to my old life, bringing news of my mother, stable but still at risk if her medication is interrupted. And brother, confirmed alive at Acidalia, though conditions remain harsh. She also helps me understand the larger context of what we're planning. This isn't just about water, she explains during a rare moment of downtime. It's about demonstrating that UTA's control isn't absolute, that Martians can determine our own resource allocation. It's a prototype for independence. The night before our operation, May gathers us for a final briefing in the junction chamber that has become our base of operations. The schematic on the wall has evolved into a detailed operational plan with timing sequences, fallback positions, and escape routes. Primary team enters here, she explains, indicating a maintenance access point near the central water distribution facility. Rusty and Quinn will proceed to the control room while Dev creates a diversion in the eastern sector. Elias monitors security channels from this relay station. Fiona and I coordinate from external positions. What about UTA's response team? I ask, studying the plan. They'll deploy as soon as the system alerts them to unauthorized changes. That's where this comes in, Quinn says, producing a small device I recognize as a protocol emulator. Once we initiate the reallocation, this will broadcast continuation signals that mask our changes. To their monitors, everything will appear normal for at least 12 hours. By which time, the political reality will have shifted, May adds. Once the lower levels have experienced unrestricted water access, UTA can't simply snatch it back without consequences. I want to believe she's right, that this action will catalyze something meaningful rather than just trigger another crackdown. But doubt lingers. What about my mother? I ask. And the others UTA has detained? Fiona touches my arm reassuringly. Dr. Mbeki has reclassified your mother under a medical research exemption. She's protected for now. As for the detainees, UTA has already released most of them. They were just fishing for information, trying to scare people. But if this works, May says, we gain leverage for negotiating better treatment for all Martians, including those in detention. I look around at these people who were strangers days ago, but now entrust their lives to my technical skills. The weight of responsibility is immense, but so is the potential impact of success. Get some rest, May advises as we conclude. Tomorrow will be a long day. And a historic one, Quinn adds with quiet intensity. The access tunnel to the water distribution facility is barely wide enough for a single person to navigate. I crawl through the narrow space, feeling the burn in my shoulders as I pull myself forward on elbows and knees. Quinn follows close behind, his breathing steady despite the confined space. Primary security sweep passing above. Elias's voice reports through our secure comms. Hold position for 30 seconds. We freeze, suspended in the dusty darkness as footsteps echo above our heads. My heart pounds so loudly, I'm certain the UTA guards must hear it through the floor panels. After what feels like an eternity, Elias gives the all clear. Approaching junction point, I whisper as we resume our advance. Should see the access hatch in 3 meters. The hatch appears exactly where expected. A maintenance entry point theoretically sealed after the last system upgrade but conveniently overlooked in the security protocols by a sympathetic technician. I apply Dev's chemical compound to the electronic lock, watching as it dissolves the circuitry without triggering the alarm system. We're in, I report as the hatch swings open silently. The control room beyond is a testament to UTA's priorities. State-of-the-art equipment monitoring every droplet of water in Olympus City. Holographic displays track usage patterns, storage levels, filtration efficiency. Under different circumstances, I would admire the engineering. Now, I see only the evidence of systematic inequity. Dev, status? May's voice asks through our comms. Diversion in place, Dev reports. Triggering in 3, 2, 1. A distant alarm begins wailing, immediately drawing the attention of the control room's lone technician. He hesitates, clearly torn between investigating the alarm and maintaining his post. Security breach in Filtration Sector 7, announces an automated voice over the facility's speakers. All personnel proceed to emergency stations. The technician makes his decision, locking his console before hurrying toward the exit. As soon as he's gone, Quinn and I emerge from our hiding spot. 12 minutes until security protocols trigger a remote check, he reminds me, connecting his protocol emulator to a secondary input port. I nod, already accessing the primary control systems. My fingers fly across the interface, navigating through security layers with the authorization codes May provided. The system architecture is familiar, similar to the maintenance systems I work with daily, just more sophisticated. Accessing primary allocation controls, I murmur, more to organize my thoughts than to inform Quinn, who watches the door. Overriding conservation protocols, reconfiguring distribution parameters. A warning flashes on the screen. Critical resource adjustment requires executive authorization. I input the stolen codes, holding my breath until the system accepts them. The display shifts, showing the current water allocation across Olympus City, a stark visual representation of inequality. The executive dome's usage dwarfs the lower level's meager allowance by a factor of 20. With a few precise commands, I begin the reallocation. Not completely equalizing the distribution that would trigger emergency protocols beyond our ability to mask, but significantly rebalancing it. Tripling the lower levels allocation while reducing the executive dome's non-essential usage. Protocol emulator active, Quinn reports, monitoring his device. System accepting masking signals. I make the final adjustments, then initiate the new distribution sequence. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, the flow indicators begin to shift, showing increased water movement toward the lower levels. It's working, I say, hardly believing it despite seeing the evidence before me. Water flow to lower levels increasing to 300% of previous allocation. Confirming from external monitors, Fiona's voice reports, excitement evident despite her attempt at professional detachment. Pressure increasing in all lower-level districts. I imagine the scene in housing blocks across the lower levels, people noticing the increased water pressure, the end of the timed rationing that has defined their daily lives for as long as most can remember. Children turning on taps to find continuous flow rather than the measured drips they've known since birth. Phase 1 complete, I report, disconnecting from the system. Masking protocols in place. Extraction route clear, Elias confirms. Return to access tunnel in 30 seconds. As Quinn and I prepare to withdraw, a notification appears on the control room's main display. Executive Dome resource reduction detected. Investigating anomaly. They're noticing already, I warn. The executives must have prioritized alerts for their own supply. Doesn't matter, Quinn responds calmly. By the time they trace it, the lower levels will have experienced the truth. Some things can't be unseen. We slip back into the access tunnel just as distant voices approach the control room. The return journey feels faster, adrenaline propelling us through the narrow passage until we reach our extraction point, where Dev waits with transport. Did we do it? She asks as we emerge, dust-covered and breathing hard. I nod, still processing the reality of what we've accomplished. Lower levels should have full water access within minutes, if they don't already. Dev's usual stoic expression breaks into a rare smile. Let's get back to base. May will want a full report. As our transport navigates the maintenance tunnels toward our rendezvous point, my wrist device buzzes with a message, not through the secure MLF channel, but my regular communication system. It's from a neighbor in my housing block. Water's flowing in Block D. Someone fixed the rationing system. Everyone's celebrating. Where are you? You're missing the party. A strange feeling expands in my chest. Pride mingled with caution, exhilaration tempered by the knowledge that we've crossed a line from which there's no return. I've moved from passive resentment to active resistance, from maintaining UTA's systems to subverting them. Quinn notices my expression. First time feels strange, doesn't it? Like you've been playing a rigged game your whole life and finally stopped following their rules. I just hope it makes a difference, I respond. That it's worth the risk. Look at your message again, he says simply. Tell me if it's worth it. I think of my mother, who might now have access to clean water for her medication without rationing, of the children in the lower levels who might sleep clean tonight, of my neighbors who have accepted deprivation as normal for so long they've forgotten to expect anything else. Yes, it's worth it. Even if UTA restores their restrictions tomorrow, the people of the lower levels will remember tonight. We'll know that scarcity is a policy choice, not an inevitability. The celebration at our hidden base is restrained but genuine. May monitors reports flowing in from across the lower levels, a rare smile softening her scarred features. Water pressure restored in all districts, she announces. UTA hasn't managed to reverse the changes yet, though they're trying. Quinn's emulator is buying us time, Elias explains, monitoring security channels. They know something's wrong, but they can't pinpoint the cause remotely. And they're a bit distracted, Fiona adds, displaying a news feed on her device. Executive Dome residents are filing hundreds of complaints about reduced water pressure. Apparently, some diplomatic function had to cancel its decorative fountain display. A ripple of satisfaction passes through the room. For once, the comfort of Earth executives isn't the priority. What about UTA's response? I ask. They must be mobilizing security. They are, Dev confirms, studying another monitor. Increased patrols in all districts. Checkpoint inspections doubled. They're looking for us. But they don't know who to look for, May points out. All they see is a system malfunction they can't immediately fix. Don't underestimate them, I caution, thinking of the automation plans I discovered. They have resources we can't match. True, May acknowledges. But we have something they don't. The support of ordinary Martians. Every person enjoying unrestricted water tonight is a potential ally, whether they realize it or not. A notification chimes on the secure network, a report from one of their observers in the mid-levels. May's expression tightens as she reads it. UTA is calling an emergency council meeting, she informs us. Director Norris herself will be addressing the situation. The name sends a chill through me. Director Alexandra Norris, the Earth-born executive who oversees all of Olympus City, known for her ruthless efficiency and contempt for Martian concerns. We've gotten her attention, Quinn observes, tone caught between pride and apprehension. Good, May responds firmly. Let her see that Mars isn't as firmly under UTA control as she believes. The celebration continues, but I find myself drifting toward the periphery, my thoughts turning to my mother. I haven't seen her since before the operation, and worry gnaws at me despite Fiona's assurances of her safety. She's asking about you, Fiona says softly, appearing at my side as if reading my thoughts. Dr. Mbeki says she's stable but concerned. I need to see her, I decide. Even just briefly. Fiona hesitates. It's risky right now with increased patrols. I know the routes security doesn't monitor, I counter. Please, Fiona, I just need to make sure she's okay. After a moment's consideration, she nods. Dr. Mbeki has her at a research clinic in mid-level section 4. I can arrange a brief visit, but you'll need to be extremely careful. I always am, I remind her, already calculating the safest path through Olympus City's underbelly. Dr. Mbeki's research clinic occupies a small section of a larger medical facility, its entrance deliberately unremarkable. I approach cautiously, using the counter-surveillance techniques May taught me to ensure I haven't been followed. The reception area is empty save for a young assistant who recognizes the identification code Fiona provided. She ushers me through to a back room without questions, her expression neutral, but her eyes conveying a silent acknowledgement. Another sympathizer, though perhaps not an active MLF member. My mother sits in a comfortable chair beside a monitoring station, looking better than I've seen her in months. Her skin has lost the grayish tinge, and though the oxygen mask remains nearby, she isn't currently using it. Kieran, she says, using my given name as always. Her eyes brighten, then narrow with concern. You're taking risks coming here. I needed to see you, I reply, crossing the room to embrace her carefully. "How are you feeling?" "Better." She gestures to the equipment surrounding her. "Dr. Mbeki has me on some experimental treatment. Says it might actually reverse some of the damage rather than just slowing the progression." Hope flares in my chest. "That's wonderful." "It is." She fixes me with the penetrating gaze that has always seen through my attempts at deception. "Almost as wonderful as the mysterious water pressure restoration that has everyone talking." I maintain a neutral expression. "I heard about that. Good news for the lower levels." She smiles faintly. "Your father would be proud, you know." The simple statement catches me off guard. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." She takes my hand, the one permanently stained red from years of chemical exposure. "He always said that systems don't fix themselves, that sometimes they need a good kick from someone who understands how they work." I swallow hard, simultaneously wanting to confide in her and needing to protect her from the knowledge of my involvement. "UTA is calling it a terrorist action," she continues, her voice low. "But in the lower levels, people are calling it justice, calling the ones responsible heroes." "The ones responsible would just be happy you're getting better," I say carefully. She squeezes my hand. "Be careful, Kieran. Whatever path you're on, be smarter than they are. Your father always said Mars would be free someday, but that the ones who make it happen might not live to see it." The door opens before I can respond, and Dr. Mbeki enters, her expression serious. "Rusty," she greets me, using my common name. "Good to see you, but I'm afraid you can't stay. UTA Security is conducting spot checks in all medical facilities. They'll be here within 20 minutes. My mother releases my hand. "Go. I'm fine here." "There's a service exit through my laboratory," Dr. Mbeki adds, already guiding me toward a side door. "It connects to the maintenance level." I turn back to my mother. "I'll come again as soon as I can." "Don't," she says firmly. "Not until it's safe. Focus on what you need to do. I'll be here, getting stronger." The conviction in her voice steadies me. She doesn't know exactly what I'm involved in, but she understands enough, supports enough. Dr. Mbeki leads me through her laboratory, a cluttered space filled with equipment I don't recognize, to an unmarked door. "This will take you to the lower service level. From there, you should be able to find your way." "Thank you," I say, meaning it for more than just the escape route. "For helping my mother. For the information about the respiratory treatment reassessments." She regards me thoughtfully. "I took an oath to heal, not to uphold corporate policies that cause harm. What you and your friends did today, it will improve health outcomes across the lower levels. Clean water saves more lives than I ever could with limited treatments." "Still risky for you to help us," I observe. "All meaningful choices involve risk," she replies simply. "Now go before those security checks reach this floor." I slip through the door and into the familiar territory of service passages, my thoughts churning with new emotions. Pride in what we've accomplished, fear of UTA's inevitable response, hope for my mother's improved treatment, and something else, a growing sense that our actions matter beyond their immediate impact, that we're part of something larger than ourselves. I'm halfway back to our hidden base when Elias's voice comes urgently through my secure comm. "Rusty, abort, return!" Security sweep in progress near base. All units maintain distance. I freeze, then quickly change direction, heading instead for a backup meeting point we'd established in an abandoned atmospheric testing chamber. Anyone compromised? I ask, keeping my voice low despite the secure channel. Negative, May responds. But they're being thorough. This isn't a routine sweep. I navigate through increasingly narrow maintenance passages, eventually emerging into the testing chamber where Quinn already waits, his expression tense. They hit 3 MLF safe houses in the past hour, he informs me as soon as I arrive. Precision raids, not random searches. A cold weight settles in my stomach. They have intelligence. Someone talked. Or they've improved their monitoring capabilities, he counters. Either way, we need to assume all previously secure locations are compromised. Within 20 minutes, the rest of our cell arrives one by one, using different routes to avoid creating a pattern. May is the last to appear, her face rigid with controlled anger. UTA is implementing countermeasures, she announces without preamble. They've identified the water distribution changes and are working to reverse them. They're also deploying armed security drones to all lower-level junctions. Armed drones in residential areas? Fiona looks shocked. That violates their own security protocols. They're calling it an emergency response to terrorist action, May quotes bitterly. Director Norris just made an announcement claiming the MLF is attempting to destabilize life support systems. That's ridiculous, I protest. We increased water access. We didn't threaten life support. Doesn't matter, Dev says grimly. They control the narrative. If they say we threatened critical systems, that's what Earth will hear. That's what the scared people in mid-levels will believe. And they're backing it with force, Elias adds, displaying security footage on his device. The images show armed drones patrolling lower-level corridors, UTA security checking identification at every intersection, workers being pulled from their shifts for questioning. I watch in growing horror as the footage shows a group of people, ordinary lower-level residents, being detained for protesting the increased security presence. Among them, I recognize faces from my own housing block. This is because of what we did, I say quietly, the weight of realization settling heavily on me. UTA is punishing everyone for our action. No, May corrects sharply. UTA is punishing everyone because that's what they always do when challenged. This isn't your fault. It's their system working exactly as designed. Collective punishment maintains control through fear. But we can't just let them take our people, I insist, thinking of the faces I recognized in the footage. We won't, she assures me. But we need to be strategic. UTA is hoping we'll react emotionally, try something desperate that will expose more of our network. Quinn nods in agreement. They want to provoke us into making mistakes. So what do we do? Fiona asks, her coordinator's mind already searching for solutions. We adapt, May decides after a moment's thought. Split into smaller units, establish new communication protocols, and prepare for the next phase. What next phase? I ask, still processing the footage of my neighbors being detained. May's eyes meet mine, unflinching. Water was just the beginning, Rusty. A demonstration of possibility. Now we show them what else we can control. The testing chamber falls silent as we absorb her words. The path ahead suddenly seems much steeper, more dangerous than I'd initially understood. What began as a single act of resistance is clearly part of a larger strategy, one that will escalate further. UTA is bringing in additional security forces from Earth, Elias reports, breaking the silence as he monitors communications. Full military-grade equipment and training. As expected, May responds. They can't allow our action to stand unchallenged. It would encourage others. It already has, Dev points out. Reports coming in show solidarity actions in 3 other domes, small-scale resource reallocations, protest gatherings. A notification chimes on my personal device, not the secure MLF channel, but my regular work assignment system. I check it with furrowed brow. Something wrong? Fiona asks, noticing my expression. I've been reassigned, I say slowly, reading the details. Emergency maintenance duty in the executive dome, reporting directly to Director Norris's office. I look up, meeting the concerned gazes of my newfound comrades. This isn't a coincidence. No, May agrees grimly. It's not. They're either suspicious of you specifically, or they're pulling all maintenance staff with your clearance level. Could be an opportunity, Quinn suggests. Access to the executive dome, to Norris's systems. Or a trap, Dev counters. Testing to see if he'll refuse the assignment and confirm suspicions. I study the work order more carefully. Assignment begins tomorrow at 0600. Priority 1 clearance required. You have to go, May decides after a moment's consideration. Refusing would immediately flag you for investigation, but will establish continuous monitoring and emergency extraction protocols. Fiona moves closer, her expression troubled. It's too risky. If they suspect him already, risk is our constant companion now, May interrupts gently. But Rusty won't be alone. We'll be watching, ready to act if necessary. I think of my mother in Dr. Mbecki's clinic, of my brother in the mining camp, of my neighbors being detained simply for protesting, of the automation plans that would eliminate the only livelihood available to lower-level workers like me. I'll go, I decide. But not just to maintain my cover. If they're giving me access to the executive dome, to Norris's systems, we should use it. A moment of silence follows my statement. Then Quinn smiles slowly. Now you're thinking like a revolutionary. What exactly are you suggesting? May asks, studying me intently. I meet her gaze, my resolve solidifying. You said water was just the beginning, that we need to show them what else we can control. I gesture to my work assignment. They're literally inviting me into their most secure systems. Let's show them exactly how much control they've already lost. May's scarred face breaks into a rare, genuine smile. I knew we recruited you for a reason. She turns to the others. Prepare infiltration support protocols. If UTA wants to give us access to the executive dome, we'd be rude to refuse such a generous invitation. As the others begin preparations, Fiona pulls me aside, her expression a complex mixture of pride and concern. Are you sure about this? Going directly into Norris's territory is different from rerouting water from maintenance tunnels. No, I admit quietly. I'm not sure. But I know what will happen if we do nothing. The water will be restricted again. The automation plans will proceed. My mother, my brother, all of us in the lower levels will continue being used until we're no longer useful, then discarded. She studies my face for a moment, then nods. You've changed, Rusty, even in just these few days. Mars is changing, I reply. I'm just trying to keep up. Later, as we finalize preparations for tomorrow's infiltration, a priority alert sounds on Elias's security monitor. His expression darkens as he reads the incoming data. UTA just announced new measures, he reports, his voice tight. Automated Maintenance Acceleration Program. They're deploying the first wave of maintenance drones effective immediately. Lower-level workers are being reassigned. The automation plan. They're implementing it now, accelerated perhaps by our water distribution action, using the security situation as justification. Reassigned where? Dev asks, though we all suspect the answer. Mining operations, Elias confirms grimly. Just like your brother. May's expression hardens. They're moving faster than we anticipated, using our action as cover to implement policies they already planned. I think of the recycler I repaired just days ago, of the lower-level blocks dependent on human maintenance workers who understand the quirks and workarounds of aging systems. The drones won't work, I say with certainty. Not on our older systems. They need human judgment, adaptive problem-solving. UTA doesn't care if efficiency drops, Fiona points out. They care about control. Human maintenance workers have too much system access, too much knowledge. Drones are predictable, limited to their programming. The revelation crystallizes something in my mind, the true nature of our struggle. It's not just about resources or even political power. It's about UTA's desire to eliminate unpredictability, to replace the human variables in their equation with controllable machines. To them, we Martians are just another resource to be optimized, then replaced when a more efficient alternative becomes available. Tomorrow's operation just became more crucial, I say, a new resolve hardening within me. We're not just striking back against water restrictions. We're fighting for our right to exist. May nods, understanding the shift in my perspective. Now you see the true stakes. This was never just about resources. It's about whether Mars belongs to the people who were born here, who built lives here, Quinn adds, or to Earth corporations who see us as temporary assets. I look around at these people who were strangers days ago, but who now share a common purpose that transcends individual concerns. When I go into the executive dome tomorrow, what exactly am I looking for? Anything you can access about the automation program, May instructs. Implementation schedules, drone specifications, security protocols, but most importantly, Director Norris's communication with Earth headquarters. We need to understand their long-term strategy, Fiona explains. The automation may be just one piece of a larger plan. I nod, already mentally mapping the executive dome systems based on my previous maintenance visits. If I can access a primary terminal, I should be able to create a secure backdoor for ongoing intelligence gathering. Don't take unnecessary risks, May cautions. Basic intelligence is valuable, but your continued access is more important than any single piece of information. The meeting continues late into the night as we refine plans and contingencies. By the time we disperse to our separate safe locations for rest, I'm exhausted but clear-headed. Tomorrow marks a definitive step, from reactive resistance to proactive infiltration. As I settle into the narrow bunk in my temporary hiding place, my thoughts turn to my father. He died in an industrial accident when I was 14, another nameless Martian worker whose life was deemed less valuable than the equipment he maintained. UTA provided the minimum mandated compensation and expected our grief to be equally minimal, equally contained. What would he think of his son now? A maintenance worker turned saboteur, a loyal employee transformed into a revolutionary. I think he would recognize the irony that everything he taught me about fixing broken systems is now being applied to the most broken system of all, UTA's relationship with Mars itself. The executive dome looms above me in the early morning light, its perfect curvature reflecting the first rays of Mars's distant sun. I approach the maintenance entrance, work order displayed on my device, expression carefully neutral despite the tension coiled within me. Maintenance access, I tell the security officer at the checkpoint. Priority 1 assignment, Director's Office, Environmental Systems. The officer scans my identification, eyes narrowing slightly. Your lower level. I gesture to my red-stained hands. Best atmospheric tech in Olympus City. Director's office requested me specifically. I keep my tone matter-of-fact, neither proud nor apologetic. After a moment's hesitation, the officer nods toward the security scanner. Full scan. All tools will be examined and logged. I comply without protest, careful to maintain the demeanor of a worker focused solely on the job ahead. My tools are standard maintenance equipment. Nothing suspicious about them, except for the modified diagnostic device that will allow me to create access points in UTA's secure networks. The scanner hums as it examines every item, every inch of my person. I hold my breath until the green light flashes, indicating clearance. Proceed to internal checkpoint, the officer instructs. You'll be escorted from there. The internal checkpoint proves even more rigorous, with another full scan and a secondary officer who inspects each tool manually. Finally, a third security officer, neither Earthborn nor lower-level Martian, but with the neutral accent of the orbital stations, approaches to escort me. This way, he says, his expression unreadable. Environmental controls for the executive offices are accessed through a dedicated maintenance bay. As we walk through the executive dome, I'm again struck by the stark contrast to the lower levels. The air is noticeably different, fresher with subtle fragrances from actual plants. The lighting mimics Earth's natural spectrum rather than the utilitarian illumination of worker areas. Even the floor is different, yielding slightly underfoot, designed for comfort rather than minimum resource usage. Water pressure issues resolved? I ask casually, testing boundaries. My escort gives me a sidelong glance. Above my clearance level. I just follow assignments. We continue in silence until reaching an unmarked door that opens to his biometric scan. Beyond lies a pristine maintenance area unlike any I've ever worked in. New equipment, organized tools, comprehensive diagnostic systems. You have 4 hours allocated for the environmental assessment and calibration, he informs me. I'll return to escort you out when time expires. Once alone, I move quickly, accessing the environmental control system while simultaneously scanning for surveillance. There are cameras, of course, but they focus on the main maintenance area rather than the diagnostic terminals. Another example of UTA's blind spot regarding technical staff. The environmental system connects to all executive offices, including Director Norris's. I begin the legitimate maintenance work, calibrating air quality and temperature controls, while simultaneously using my modified diagnostic tool to map the network architecture. I'm in, I murmur into the concealed communication device embedded in my work collar. Environmental systems fully accessible, seeking network junction points. Confirmed, comes Elias's quiet response. Monitoring security channels. All clear so far. I work methodically, completing actual maintenance tasks while seeking vulnerabilities in the system. An hour passes before I find what I need, a secondary access point that bridges the environmental controls with the executive communication network. Junction identified, I report softly. Initiating access protocol. My modified tool connects to the junction, uploading the infiltration program Quinn designed. To any security monitoring, It appears as standard diagnostic procedures. In reality, it's creating a nearly undetectable backdoor into UTA's most secure systems. Upload in progress, I whisper. Estimated completion in 3 minutes. Security alert in Western Sector, Elias warns suddenly. Unrelated to your position, but stay alert. They're increasing drone patrols throughout the dome. I continue working, outwardly focused on calibrating air quality sensors while monitoring the upload's progress. At 80% completion, a notification appears on the system terminal. Anomaly detected. Diagnostic verification required. My heart races as I quickly input the override codes Quinn provided. For several agonizing seconds, the system processes the response, then, verification accepted, resuming standard operations. I exhale slowly as the upload completes. Backdoor established. Commencing data extraction. The next 2 hours pass in a careful balance of legitimate maintenance work and covert data extraction. Through the back door, I access information about the automation program, copying files on implementation schedules, drone specifications, and resource allocation plans. Then I find something unexpected, a file labeled Mars Strategic Reduction Initiative. Curiosity overrides caution, and I open it. The contents freeze my blood. Not just automation of maintenance jobs, but a comprehensive plan to reduce Martian-born population throughout UTA facilities, downsizing housing allocations, restricting reproduction permissions, gradually replacing Martian workers with Earth-born specialists and automated systems in all sectors. It's not just about control or efficiency, it's about reclaiming Mars from its native population, a slow-motion extinction. Data extraction complete, I report, my voice tight with suppressed emotion. Found strategic plans. It's worse than we thought. Understood, May responds. Complete your assigned maintenance and prepare for extraction. Don't deviate from... Her voice cuts off as the maintenance bay door slides open unexpectedly. I quickly disconnect my diagnostic tool and return to the environmental controls, adopting the focused expression of a technician absorbed in his work. Maintenance inspection, announces a security officer I haven't seen before, accompanied by a small security drone hovering at shoulder height. Step away from the terminal. I comply immediately, keeping my movements slow and non-threatening. Just finishing calibration of the executive environmental systems. Scheduled maintenance. The officer consults his device. Your assigned time has not expired. Why were you preparing to leave? A trap in his question. He's fishing for inconsistencies. Not leaving, I correct calmly. Just completed the calibration phase and moving to the verification phase. I gesture to the tool in my hand. Different procedure, different position. He studies me for a moment, then nods toward the terminal. Proceed. But be advised that additional security protocols are now active throughout the executive dome due to heightened threat assessment. Understood, I reply, returning to the terminal while maintaining outward composure despite my racing heart. The officer remains in the maintenance bay, ostensibly reviewing something on his device but clearly monitoring my work. The security drone hovers, its sensors focused on my movements. I continue the legitimate maintenance work, methodically checking each system component while avoiding any action that might reveal my earlier infiltration. The minutes drag by under the weight of scrutiny. Finally, after what feels like hours, my escort from earlier returns. Maintenance period expired, he announces. System status. All executive environmental controls calibrated and verified. I report professionally. Air quality optimized to Earth standard specifications. Temperature gradients adjusted for maximum comfort. He nods, apparently satisfied, while the security officer continues to watch me with barely concealed suspicion. Return all tools to inspection. Prepare for exit protocols. As I gather my equipment, careful to include the modified diagnostic tool among ordinary devices, I notice the security drone's sensor array focusing specifically on my hands, on the red stains that mark me as lower-level maintenance. New security directive, the officer explains, noticing my awareness of the drone's attention. Biometric scanning of all non-executive personnel entering restricted areas. My escort leads me back through the executive dome toward the exit checkpoints. The same rigorous inspection process repeats in reverse. Each tool examined, my person scanned multiple times. I maintain the outward appearance of a maintenance worker focused solely on completing assigned tasks, disconnected from larger concerns. Only when I finally exit the executive dome, passing through the last security checkpoint into a standard transport tube, do I allow myself to breathe normally again. The secure communication device in my collar has remained silent since the security officer's interruption. Standard protocol when unexpected security presence is detected. As the transport carries me toward the lower levels, I watch the executive dome recede behind me, its perfect curvature now seeming less like an engineering marvel and more like a fortress wall separating privileged Earthborn from the Martians, whose planet they occupy. The document I discovered, the Mars Strategic Reduction Initiative, replays in my mind. Not just job elimination, but a comprehensive plan to gradually erase Martian presence from our own world. To reclaim Mars for Earth interests by slowly suffocating its native population. The transport slows as it approaches the first lower-level checkpoint. Two security officers wait at the exit, accompanied by an armed drone, part of the increased security measures implemented since our water redistribution action. I prepare my identification, adopting the weary expression of a maintenance worker returning from a long shift. As I step forward for scanning, one of the officers studies my face with unusual intensity. "Maintenance worker Byrne," he says, reading my identification. "You've been reassigned. Report to Central Processing immediately for new duty allocation." Central Processing, the administrative hub where workers are assigned to off-site locations, including the mining operations where my brother was sent. "May I ask the nature of the reassignment?" I inquire, keeping my tone neutral despite the alarm bells ringing in my mind. "Automated Maintenance Transition Program," the officer replies mechanically. "All Level 3 maintenance personnel are being evaluated for reassignment as the new systems come online." The automation plan, accelerated just as Elias reported. Not scheduled for gradual implementation over months, but happening now, immediately. "I understand," I respond, my mind racing as I calculate options. "When am I expected to report?" "Immediately," the officer repeats, his expression hardening slightly. "Transport to Central Processing departs in 15 minutes from Platform 7. I nod compliance, but as I turn toward Platform 7, my secure communication device vibrates subtly against my collar, a warning signal from our monitoring team. Something is wrong beyond the unexpected reassignment. "Maintenance worker Byrne," the officer calls, stopping me. "One moment. System flagging a secondary verification requirement." I turn back, maintaining outward calm while my mind catalogs escape routes. Of course. The officer consults his device, then looks up with changed expression, harder, focused. "Please come with us to the security office. just a standard verification process for all maintenance workers who've accessed executive areas. A trap. The backdoor access must have been detected, or my data extraction flagged. Or perhaps they've been watching me longer than we realized, waiting for confirmatory evidence. Certainly, I agree, taking a half step forward before pivoting suddenly, ducking under the second officer's reaching arm. I sprint toward the maintenance access hatch at the far end of the platform, hearing shouts behind me as the officers give chase. The armed drone accelerates in pursuit, its propulsion fans whining as it closes the distance. My hand slaps the emergency override on the access hatch, a code known only to maintenance workers that temporarily disables automated security on service entrances. The hatch slides open just enough for me to squeeze through before slamming shut behind me, sealing out the pursuing drone. I plunge into the familiar darkness of the maintenance tunnels, navigating by memory and instinct through the labyrinthine passages that have been my workplace for years. Behind me, alarms begin to sound, not just local security alerts, but the dome-wide emergency signal that indicates a major security breach. Status, comes May's voice through my communication device, no longer bothering with subtlety. Compromised, I respond, still running through the tunnels. Security identified me, attempted detention at lower-level checkpoint, currently evading in Maintenance Sector 5. Extraction team en route, she confirms. Proceed to emergency rendezvous point Delta. Avoid all primary passages. I change direction, heading deeper into the maze of service tunnels that connect Olympus City's disparate sectors. These passages, originally designed for routine maintenance, have become the veins and arteries of our resistance. Martian spaces beneath the UTA-controlled surface. As I navigate the darkness, I realize that my life as Rusty the maintenance worker has ended. From this moment forward, I am something else. A fugitive, a revolutionary, a threat to UTA's control of Mars. There is no returning to my previous existence. No possibility of blending back into the anonymous mass of lower-level workers. The knowledge should terrify me, but instead, I feel an unexpected clarity. The path ahead is dangerous, uncertain, but at least it's honest. No more maintaining systems that oppress my people. No more repairing the machinery of our own exploitation. I think of the Mars Strategic Reduction Initiative, and my resolve hardens further. This isn't just about water allocation or job security anymore. It's about survival, the continued existence of Martians on our own planet. As I approach the rendezvous point where the MLF extraction team waits, I make a silent promise to my mother, to my brother, to all Martians struggling under UTA control. What I've begun, I will see through to its conclusion. Mars will be ours again, or I'll die in the attempt. Chapter 3. The Price of Freedom. They're going to erase us. My voice echoes through the abandoned water reclamation facility that now serves as the MLF's emergency command center. Around me, 24 resistance members listen in stunned silence as I describe the Mars Strategic Reduction Initiative I discovered in the executive dome. Not just replacing our jobs, I continue, my hands clenching at my sides. This is a systematic plan to reduce the Martian-born population throughout UTA facilities, restricted reproduction permissions, reduced resource allocations, gradual replacement with Earth-born specialists. May stands at my side, her scarred face impassive despite the gravity of my report. The data Rusty recovered confirms what we've suspected for years. UTA doesn't see Mars as our home. They see it as their property, and us as a temporary workforce to be phased out once we're no longer cost-effective. Murmurs ripple through the gathered MLF members, shock, anger, fear. These are not professional revolutionaries, but ordinary Martians driven to resistance by UTA's increasing oppression. Maintenance workers, resource allocators, medical assistants, agricultural technicians. People who keep Mars habitable while being treated as disposable. "How long?" asks a woman near the front, her voice trembling. "How long before they implement this reduction?" I shake my head. It's already begun. The automation program is phase 1. The security crackdown we're experiencing now will provide cover for accelerated implementation. Which is why we must respond immediately, May interjects, her tone shifting from informational to commanding. UTA believes they can simply replace us with machines and imported Earth specialists. We need to demonstrate that Mars cannot function without Martians. Quinn steps forward, activating a holographic display of Olympus City's infrastructure. Based on Rusty's intelligence, we've identified 3 critical systems that remain dependent on human maintenance despite automation efforts. The display highlights specific sections of the city's infrastructure: the central atmospheric processing hub, the primary water filtration system, and the dome integrity monitoring network. These systems are too complex, too unpredictable for current automation technology, Quinn explains. Even with their new maintenance drones, UTA can't eliminate human oversight without significant risk. Which gives us leverage, May concludes. Not to destroy these systems, we need them to survive as much as the Earth executives do, but to demonstrate that only Martians truly understand how to maintain them. The gathered rebels nod in understanding. This isn't about random sabotage or violence. It's about proving our indispensability, about forcing UTA to recognize that Mars belongs to those who've made it their home. As the meeting transitions to tactical planning, Fiona approaches me, her expression troubled. "You look terrible," she observes quietly. "When did you last sleep?" "I'm fine," I insist, though exhaustion weighs on my limbs like Martian gravity after a lifetime in Earth's lighter pull. "You're not," she counters, guiding me toward a quieter corner of the facility. "And you need to be. The information you recovered changes everything. The resistance needs you functional, not burnt out." I run a hand through my dust-matted hair, conceding her point. Since my narrow escape from UTA security 3 days ago, I've been in constant motion, moving between safe houses, analyzing the stolen data, helping coordinate the MLF's response. "Any word about my mother?" I ask, the question that's been gnawing at me since my cover was blown. Fiona nods. "Dr. Mbeki moved her to a secure location before UTA could connect her to you. She's stable, and her treatment continues." Relief washes through me, temporarily superseding exhaustion. "And Liam?" Her expression tightens. "Still at Acidalia mining camp, but our contact reports he's been transferred to less dangerous operations following our communication disruption. A small victory, but meaningful nonetheless." "I need to get him out of there," I say, voicing the thought that has haunted me since his arrest. "One thing at a time," Fiona counsels. "Right now, we need to focus on the immediate response to the Strategic Reduction Initiative. Once we've established leverage, we can negotiate for releases." She's right, though the knowledge doesn't ease the constant worry about my brother. The mining operations have a reputation for harsh conditions and minimal safety protocols. Workers, especially those sent there as punishment, often return with permanent injuries, if they return at all. "Rusty." May's voice interrupts my thoughts as she approaches. "We need your expertise for the atmospheric processing hub operation." No one knows those systems better than you. I straighten, pushing aside fatigue and personal concerns. I'm ready. May studies me for a moment, then nods toward a nearby rest area. After 6 hours of mandatory downtime, I need you sharp, not stumbling from exhaustion. I start to protest, but the firm set of her scarred features makes it clear this isn't a suggestion. 6 hours, she repeats. Then we plan. The terraforming observatory at Olympus Mons base stands as a relic of earlier ambitions, a massive structure built when Earth still dreamed of transforming Mars into a second Earth, rather than merely extracting its resources. Now it serves primarily as a research station, its grand observation deck rarely used for its intended purpose. Today, that deck has been repurposed as neutral ground for unprecedented negotiations. I stand with May and Quinn on one side of a simple table, watching as the UTA delegation enters from the opposite doorway. Director Alexandra Norris leads their group, her bearing imperious despite the circumstances forcing her to negotiate. I've only glimpsed her previously during required viewing of corporate announcements, but in person, her presence is more imposing. Tall, silver-haired, with the distinctive pallor and fluid movements of someone born and raised in Earth gravity. Flanking her are 2 security officers and a technical specialist in UTA blue. Between the groups stands Sergeant Marcus Webb, his neutral stance physically representing his mediator role. The Martian Liberation Front representatives are present and accounted for, Webb announces formally. Director Norris represents the United Terraforming Authority. These proceedings occur under mutual security guarantees for the duration of negotiations. Norris's gaze fixes on me immediately, recognition flashing in her eyes. Maintenance worker Byrne. You've caused considerable disruption for someone whose job is maintaining order. Former maintenance worker, I correct calmly. Current freedom fighter. And maintaining unjust systems isn't order, it's oppression. Webb intervenes before the exchange can escalate. Both parties have agreed to focus on resolution rather than recrimination. The atmospheric system disruptions continue to worsen while we debate. He's right. According to our monitoring, the simulated cascade failures have expanded throughout the network, with executive dome environmental controls now operating at minimal efficiency. Not dangerous yet, but increasingly uncomfortable for Earth-born executives accustomed to perfect atmospheric conditions. Let's proceed efficiently, May states, taking control of our side of the negotiation. The MLF has 3 non-negotiable demands for resolving the current situation. Immediate release of detained maintenance workers, suspension of the automation program pending review by a joint committee including Martian representatives, and official acknowledgement of the Martian Liberation Front as a legitimate political entity. Norris's expression remains composed, but I detect a flicker of surprise, perhaps at the moderation of our demands, or perhaps at their political rather than merely technical nature. The UTA is prepared to negotiate technical solutions with technical specialists, she responds carefully. The release of individuals detained for criminal activities and recognition of an organization responsible for infrastructure sabotage exceed the scope of these discussions. Yet here you are, discussing precisely those matters with us, Quinn points out. Because your automated systems have failed to resolve the atmospheric disruptions, as promised in your promotional materials about maintenance efficiency. The UTA technical specialist shifts uncomfortably, clearly aware of exactly how thoroughly the automation has failed against our virus. We could continue debating whether this meeting constitutes recognition, Webb interjects pragmatically, or we could address the substantive issues that brought us here. Norris regards him with barely concealed irritation before returning her attention to our delegation. The UTA is prepared to offer the following: temporary reassignment of specific experienced maintenance personnel to address the current atmospheric system, anomalies, review of automation implementation timelines, and reduced sentences for individuals whose technical expertise proves valuable during system restoration. A careful non-concession wrapped in technical language. No actual release of prisoners, no real suspension of automation, no recognition of our political status, merely temporary accommodations that preserve UTA authority while resolving their immediate problem. Unacceptable. May responds without hesitation. You're offering temporary measures that maintain Earth control while extracting the technical assistance you need. We require structural changes that acknowledge Martian autonomy. Norris's composure slips slightly. Martian autonomy is not on the table. Mars is a UTA operational territory developed through Earth investment and technology. Your presence here is the result of Earth's generational terraform project. Our presence here is the result of Martian birth and labor. I counter, unable to remain silent in the face of such dismissal. Earth corporations didn't build Mars. Martian workers did, generation after generation, while UTA extracted resources and profit. Norris turns her cold attention fully to me. Worker Byrne, your personal situation may be influencing your perspective. I understand your brother is currently detained at Acidalia, and your mother requires specialized medical treatment. Both of these circumstances could be favorably addressed without resorting to broader political demands. The attempted leverage is exactly as May predicted. Personal incentives designed to separate my interests from the collective Martian cause. My family situation is replicated throughout the lower levels. I respond evenly. Martians detained for minor infractions. Martians denied adequate health care. Martians treated as disposable resources rather than citizens. Individual accommodations solve nothing when the system itself is designed for exploitation. May places a datapad on the table, sliding it toward Webb. Evidence of the Mars Strategic Reduction Initiative, she states for the record. UTA's comprehensive plan to gradually eliminate the Martian-born population through restricted reproduction permissions, reduced resource allocations, and replacement with Earth-born specialists. Norris's reaction is subtle but unmistakable. A momentary widening of eyes, a slight stiffening of posture. She hadn't expected us to possess this specific intelligence. Webb reviews the document with growing concern evident in his expression. Is this verified? He asks, looking between the delegations. It is UTA's official strategic planning document, May confirms, obtained from Director Norris's secure files. A partial draft of contingency planning, Norris attempts to clarify, regaining her composure. Not approved policy, merely theoretical resource allocation modeling. Theoretical modeling that's already being implemented through the automation program, Quinn challenges. Phase 1 of a comprehensive strategy to reclaim Mars for Earth interests by gradually eliminating its native population. Webb continues reviewing the document, his expression increasingly troubled. His mixed heritage, neither fully Earthborn nor fully Martian, places him in a unique position to understand the implications from both perspectives. This contextualizes the current negotiations significantly, he finally states, looking directly at Norris. The MLF's demands appear more proportionate when viewed against this strategic context. The negotiations continue for hours, proposals and counter-proposals flowing across the table. Eventually, Webb formulates a compromise. The release of detained workers in phases, A 4-month suspension of the automation program with mandatory review including MLF representatives and the establishment of a Mars Governance Council with MLF participation. Norris hesitates visibly before finally giving a single decisive nod. Agreed, pending implementation details. As the technical details are finalized, I find myself studying Director Norris with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. She has conceded more than I expected, though still maintaining Earth's fundamental authority through the structured implementation. Her gaze meets mine across the table. You believe you've won something significant today, Worker Byrne, she observes quietly, using my former title deliberately. We've established that Martians deserve a voice in Mars's future, I respond. That's not victory. It's merely recognition of reality. Reality is determined by those with power to enforce their perspective, she counters. Today's concessions reflect temporary circumstances, not permanent realignment. Her candor is surprising but illuminating. She views today's agreement not as legitimate political recognition, but as tactical retreat necessitated by immediate circumstances. Perhaps, I acknowledge. But each recognition makes the next one easier to achieve. Earth has controlled Mars through the assumption of absolute authority. Once that assumption is challenged successfully, even temporarily, it can never be fully restored. Something flickers in her expression, not quite respect, but recognition of a worthy adversary rather than a mere disruptive element. Your technical skills would have guaranteed you an exemption from the automation program, she notes. Your value to UTA operations was well documented, yet you chose opposition instead of accommodation. Because I recognize the difference between individual exemption and collective justice, I explain simply. My skills were developed through Martian experience, maintained through Martian community. Individual success means nothing if my people remain exploited. News of the agreement spreads rapidly through Martian communities, facilitated by the MLF's communication network and UTA's own announcement of the temporary resource allocation review process they've established to address technical concerns raised by maintenance specialists. Their characterization avoids acknowledging the MLF directly, but the substance of the agreement becomes clear as detained workers begin returning to the lower levels. Automation drones are withdrawn from critical systems, and formal invitations to the Mars Governance Council circulate to selected representatives. In the MLF Command Center, the mood is one of cautious celebration tinged with strategic focus. May addresses the assembled resistance members with characteristic intensity. Today's agreement represents progress, not victory, she reminds everyone. UTA has acknowledged our leverage and our political standing, but their fundamental objective remains unchanged. The Strategic Reduction Initiative has been delayed, not abandoned. I monitor the atmospheric system restoration from a specialized terminal, ensuring UTA implements the technical protocols correctly rather than attempting to extract additional information from our counter-virus. The gradual stabilization proceeds as designed, with executive dome environmental controls returning to normal parameters, while we maintain subtle backdoor access for future leverage if needed. Fiona joins me, her expression reflecting the complex mixture of triumph and concern that pervades our group. Your brother's processing paperwork just appeared in the system, she informs me quietly. He's among the second group scheduled for release, returning to Olympus City within 3 days. Relief washes through me at this concrete, personal victory amid the larger political developments. And my mother? Dr. Mbeki reports her condition has stabilized under the experimental treatment protocol. The transfer to Elysium research facilities seems to have been beneficial. Fiona's expression softens. You should be able to see them both soon, once security protocols for your movement are established under the agreement. The prospect of reuniting with my family after everything that's happened creates an emotional surge I wasn't prepared for. So much has changed in such a short time. My identity, my role, my understanding of Mars's future. Yet the core motivation remains personal as well as political. Creating a Mars where my family and all Martians can exist as citizens rather than resources. You've become something of a symbol, Fiona observes, gesturing toward a nearby group of younger resistance members who keep glancing in my direction with barely concealed admiration. The maintenance worker who hacked UTA's most secure systems and forced Director Norris to negotiate directly. The notion makes me uncomfortable. I just applied technical knowledge gained through years of maintaining their systems, which is exactly what makes it powerful, she counters. You used their own infrastructure against them, demonstrated that Martian expertise is not replaceable by automation or imported specialists. That resonates with people throughout the domes. Before I can respond, Elias approaches with obvious urgency. Communication intercept you need to see, he says, leading us to his monitoring station. UTA just received their first direct transmission from Earth headquarters since our disruption of the communication array. The intercepted message appears on his screen, a priority directive from UTA's Earth-based leadership responding to Director Norris's report of the negotiated agreement. The language is blunt and unambiguous. Agreement terms exceeding your authority. Implementation to be minimally interpreted while strategic countermeasures developed. Mars Strategic Reduction Initiative remains primary directive with accelerated timeline. Resistance infrastructure to be targeted through infiltration rather than direct confrontation. Maintain appearance of compliance while preparing containment protocols. May joins us, reading the intercept with grim validation of her earlier caution. As expected, they're using the agreement as cover while preparing more sophisticated countermeasures. We should alert our negotiating team for the Governance Council, Quinn suggests. This confirms they're not operating in good faith. No, May decides after consideration. We maintain this intelligence advantage. Let them believe their true intentions remain concealed while we prepare accordingly. I study the directive with growing resolve rather than disappointment. UTA's response confirms that our leverage is genuine, their concern real. They wouldn't invest in sophisticated countermeasures if our resistance were merely an irritant, rather than a fundamental threat to their control. The communication mentions infiltration, I note, highlighting the relevant section. They're shifting from direct confrontation to penetration of our networks. Already anticipated, May assures me. Cell structure limits information exposure, regular security protocol rotations, continuous monitoring for unusual access patterns. Standard resistance security measures, but are they sufficient against UTA's resources? The Strategic Reduction Initiative revealed their long-term commitment to eliminating Martian autonomy. They will invest whatever resources necessary to preserve Earth control of Mars and its valuable resources. We should accelerate our own counterplanning, I suggest. The agreement buys us time and political standing, but we need to be preparing for their next move, not just celebrating this temporary victory. Our newfound caution proves prescient. Less than 24 hours later, a priority alert sounds from our security monitoring system. Elias quickly accesses the warning details, his expression darkening as he reads. Multiple security breaches detected at lower-level access points, he reports. UTA forces implementing some kind of specialized scan protocol. They're searching for something specific. Fiona accesses additional security feeds, displaying visual confirmation of the operation. UTA security teams, accompanied by specialized drones, are conducting systematic searches throughout lower-level districts, focusing particularly on maintenance access points and environmental control nodes. They're looking for our remaining virus access points, I realize, studying their search pattern. The agreement covered resolving the atmospheric disruptions, but they're hunting for any backdoor access we've maintained. Standard security procedure, Quinn observes, though his expression suggests concern beyond routine precautions. They'd naturally want to ensure no additional vulnerabilities remain. But the timing directly follows Earth Headquarters' directive, May points out. This isn't routine security. It's the beginning of their strategic countermeasures while maintaining technical compliance with our agreement. The security feeds show increasingly intensive scanning operations, with UTA forces removing access panels and conducting deep system inspections throughout the lower levels. Their methodical approach suggests specific intelligence guiding their search. They know more than they should about our methods, I say quietly, the uncomfortable implication hanging in the air. This isn't a general security sweep. They're following a very specific search pattern that suggests insider knowledge. The possibility of infiltration or betrayal has existed since our atmospheric system operation when a team member named Audrey was captured. But the precision of UTA's current search pattern indicates more detailed intelligence than a single captured operative could provide. As we debate potential security compromises, a notification chimes on Elias's monitor. They've found something in lower block C, he reports, zooming in on the feed showing UTA security extracting a small device from an environmental control node. My stomach drops as I recognize the component, one of our virus delivery mechanisms that should have been removed during our extraction. Someone failed to complete the cleanup protocol, leaving physical evidence for UTA to discover. Block C was Team 2's area, Quinn says quietly, naming the team whose member was captured during our operation. The same team that was compromised. Before we can process the implications, multiple alarms activate simultaneously throughout our command center. Proximity warnings, communication interruptions, security perimeter breaches, all indicating coordinated action against our position. Direct assault incoming, May announces with calm urgency. Evacuation protocol active. Secure essential data and proceed to designated extraction points. The command center transforms instantly from strategic planning hub to emergency evacuation zone. Resistance members systematically destroy sensitive materials while securing critical data for transport. Others prepare defensive positions to delay pursuit while evacuation proceeds. Their timing is too precise, I observe to May as we prepare to evacuate. They shouldn't have been able to locate this facility so quickly after finding the device in Block C. No, she agrees grimly. This was pre-planned. The search operation was cover for positioning forces, not the actual intelligence gathering. She studies the security feeds showing UTA forces converging on our location from multiple directions. They've been playing us while we thought we were playing them. The realization is sobering. While we celebrated our negotiation victory, UTA was already implementing their counter-strategy. The agreement wasn't their tactical adjustment. It was ours, prompted by their careful positioning. Extraction routes compromised, Elias reports, monitoring the rapidly deteriorating security situation. UTA forces have established containment perimeter with drone coverage of all standard exit points. Secondary evacuation protocol, May orders without hesitation. Emergency tunnels, quadrant separation, independent extraction. The contingency plan she specifies is our most extreme option, splitting into small groups that evacuate through rarely used maintenance passages, accepting that some will likely be captured while others preserve the resistance's continuity. It's a brutal calculus of revolutionary survival. Rusty goes with primary data team, she directs, assigning me to the group responsible for preserving our most critical intelligence and technical capabilities. Your knowledge is irreplaceable if we need to rebuild. I start to protest, not wanting special treatment while others face greater risk, but Quinn interrupts. She's right. Your technical signature is on our most effective operations. If they capture you, they gain insight into vulnerabilities we've exploited. Reluctantly, I accept the assignment, joining a small team preparing to evacuate through the deepest emergency tunnels, ancient maintenance passages dating back to original construction, so narrow and hazardous they're used only in extreme circumstances. As final evacuation preparations complete, UTA forces begin breaching our outer security perimeter. The sounds of their advance, mechanized drones, tactical teams, specialized breaching equipment, echo through the command center's communication system. Remember, May addresses the gathered resistance members one final time. Whatever happens today, we've already changed Mars forever. They can capture individuals, but they cannot recapture the idea of Martian freedom once it's been released. Her words carry profound weight as we separate into our evacuation groups. The MLF has existed for years, surviving previous security operations through careful planning and distributed leadership. But this assault feels different, more precisely targeted, more comprehensively resourced. I follow my assigned team toward the emergency access point, my thoughts churning with contingency planning. If we're compromised, what systems remain leverageable? If captured, what information must be protected at all costs? If separated, how do we reconnect once the immediate crisis passes? As we enter the narrow emergency tunnel, I cast one final glance back at the command center, where days ago I was welcomed into the resistance. The space that represented hope for Martian self-determination now faces imminent capture by the forces we've opposed. Yet even as UTA forces breach our physical infrastructure, they cannot touch the transformation that has occurred within Mars's people. The water redistribution, the atmospheric system leverage, the negotiated political recognition, each has demonstrated that Martian autonomy is possible, that Earth control is not absolute. My evacuation team moves deeper into Mars's ancient tunnels, navigating by memorized routes rather than electronic guidance that could be tracked. Behind us, the sounds of UTA's assault fade, replaced by the eerie silence of abandoned passages unused for generations. What lies ahead remains uncertain, whether freedom or capture, victory or setback. But whatever comes, I know with unshakable clarity that Mars has changed, and I have changed with it. The maintenance worker who once fixed broken systems for those who exploited his people now works to fix the most broken system of all, Earth's relationship with the planet we call home. As we push forward through the darkness, I make a silent promise to my mother, my brother, and all Martians. This setback will not be the end. The flames of resistance, once ignited, cannot be easily extinguished. UTA may have won this battle, but they have awakened a spirit of defiance that will transform Mars forever. The path ahead will be difficult, dangerous, and uncertain. But for the first time, that path leads toward a future determined by Martians themselves, not dictated by distant Earth corporations who see our planet as merely a resource to exploit. Whatever sacrifices lie ahead, that future is worth fighting for. I am no longer Rusty the maintenance worker. I am Kieran Byrne, Martian revolutionary. And our struggle has only just begun. Chapter 4. Our Mars. 14 days in darkness changes a person. 2 weeks navigating the forgotten passages beneath Olympus City, moving only when security patrols thin, stealing rest in abandoned maintenance alcoves, surviving on emergency rations and recycled water. The constant tension of near discovery has carved new lines into all our faces, even Dev's usually impassive features. Security sweep passing above, Quinn whispers, monitoring the sensor he's placed against the ceiling of our current hiding place. A decommissioned water filtration chamber 3 levels below even the lowest inhabited sections of the city. We freeze, the 4 of us barely breathing as the subtle vibrations of drone movements pass overhead. After months maintaining UTA's systems, I recognize the signature of Mark V security drones, newer models deployed specifically to hunt resistance members in the wake of our command center's fall. Clear, Quinn confirms after an agonizing minute. But they're expanding their search pattern. This section won't be safe much longer. What about the others? I ask, the question that has haunted me since our scattered evacuation. Any word from May's team? Or Fiona's? Dev shakes her head. Still radio silence. Too risky to use standard communication channels with UTA monitoring all frequencies. My chest tightens with familiar worry. 14 days since the assault forced us to split into evacuation teams. 14 days of uncertainty about who escaped and who was captured. About whether my brother's release proceeded as scheduled. About my mother's continued treatment under Dr. Mbeki's protection. We can't stay dormant forever, Elias says, voicing the conclusion we've all been approaching. UTA's using our inactivity to implement the automation program ahead of schedule despite the agreement. They're telling people the MLF has been eliminated. He's right. The few information feeds we've managed to intercept reveal UTA's carefully constructed narrative. The Martian Liberation Front characterized as a small band of saboteurs now neutralized. The negotiated agreement reframed as technical adjustments already completed. The automated maintenance program presented as progress rather than the extinction event we know it to be. The rendezvous point activates tomorrow, Quinn reminds us. If any other teams survived, that's when we'll find out. The rendezvous protocol, established by May before the evacuation, specified 20 cycles of waiting before attempting to reconnect at a predetermined location. The delay served multiple purposes, allowing pursuit to diminish, giving captured members time to endure initial interrogation without compromising the meeting, permitting security countermeasures to be established. And if no one else makes it? Dev asks the question none of us wants to consider. Then we become the new core. I respond with more confidence than I feel. We have the technical data, Quinn's tactical experience, your security knowledge, Elias's communication expertise. We rebuild. The ancient volcanic vents beneath Olympus Mons have been sealed and reinforced since the earliest days of colonization, a necessary precaution against Mars's still active geology. The deepest sections remain unmarked on official maps, their existence known only to generations of maintenance workers who passed the knowledge through whispered instructions and hand-drawn schematics. It's here, in a chamber formed by the convergence of 3 massive lava tubes, that May established our emergency rendezvous point. The location offers natural security, limited access routes, ambient thermal patterns that confuse automated sensors, and proximity to multiple escape options if discovered. No signs of surveillance, Quinn confirms as we complete our 3rd sweep of the surrounding passages. No evidence of recent activity either. First one's here, Dev concludes, though her tone suggests this might not be good news. Hours pass in tense silence. Each distant sound, the settling of the mountain, the subtle shifts of pressurized passages, the distant murmur of maintenance systems, brings us to alert readiness, only to subside into continued waiting. Someone's coming. Elias whispers suddenly, indicating his detection display. Northern Passage. 2 individuals, moving cautiously. Quinn and Dev take defensive positions while I remain with Elias, monitoring the approach. The signal patterns suggest human movement rather than drones, but UTA security officers would register similarly. MLF recognition protocol, comes a voice from the darkness of the passage. Red soil, red hands, red Mars. Relief floods through me as Fiona emerges from the shadows, accompanied by a resistance member I recognize from Communications Division. Both look haggard, with the same haunted vigilance that 2 weeks of hiding has instilled in all of us. Rusty, Fiona breathes, genuine emotion breaking through her exhaustion as she embraces me briefly. We weren't sure anyone else made it out. Just the 4 of us, I confirm, gesturing to our small group. What about your team? The others? Her expression darkens. 7 of us escaped initially. 3 captured during secondary security sweeps. We've maintained minimal movement, limited communication. May? Quinn asks the critical question. No confirmation, Fiona responds. Her team was responsible for drawing pursuit away from the rest of us. They would have faced the heaviest resistance. Over the next few hours, 3 more small groups arrive. 14 resistance members in total, including ourselves. Each brings similar stories of narrow escapes, extended hiding, and the constant pressure of UTA's expanding security operations. They've implemented facial recognition throughout the lower levels, reports a logistics specialist named Talia. Automated scans at every intersection, drone patrols with biometric sensors. They're hunting us systematically. What about the negotiated agreement? I ask. The Governance Council, the automation suspension, the prisoner releases, partially implemented, then suspended citing security concerns, answers a former UTA coordinator who joined the resistance months ago. About 40% of detained workers released before they halted the process. Automation officially paused, while actually accelerating in non-visible systems. The Governance Council convened once with minimal Martian representation, then postponed indefinitely. Exactly as Earth headquarters directed in their intercepted communication, minimal compliance while preparing containment protocols. UTA is using our apparent defeat to justify abandoning even the limited concessions Director Norris agreed to. What about specific detainees? I press, unable to keep personal concern from my voice. Was Liam Byrne among those released? Fiona touches my arm gently. No confirmation either way, Rusty. The released detainee lists were restricted after the first group, but Dr. Mbeki sent a secure message before communications were locked down. Your mother remains safe at the Elysium Research Facility, outside UTA's immediate security jurisdiction. As midnight approaches, we must acknowledge the reality. May's team isn't coming. Whether captured, killed, or forced to maintain distance, we need to proceed without their leadership. We need to establish new command structure, Quinn states, voicing the necessary next step. Determine immediate priorities and long-term strategy. We've lost our central leadership, most of our safe houses, and significant operational capability, Dev points out. Pragmatically, our options are severely limited. So we adapt, I respond, an echo of May's constant refrain. UTA thinks they've eliminated us. That gives us one advantage. They won't be expecting coordinated resistance. The Central Environmental Control Hub, I explained to our gathered survivors. Not the atmospheric processors we targeted before. They've undoubtedly strengthened those security protocols. Instead, we focus on the climate stabilization systems for the executive dome itself. The executive's personal comfort, Fiona realizes, understanding immediately. Their artificial Earth environment. Exactly. Not life-threatening, not even significantly disruptive to operations, but impossible to ignore, impossible to dismiss as routine malfunction, and, most importantly, impossible for their automated systems to fully resolve without human intervention. And when they realize they need human maintenance workers, Elias asks, they'll discover that the released prisoners they've been monitoring aren't the ones with the necessary specialized knowledge, I continue. They'll need to negotiate again, this time with the understanding that our previous compliance was voluntary, not forced. The plan takes shape as we discuss potential approaches, security considerations, and implementation timelines. Not everyone agrees with every aspect, but the core concept gains acceptance. A demonstration of continued capability, coupled with rebuilding our distributed resistance network. There's still one critical question, Quinn points out as our planning advances. Leadership. We need clear decision authority, especially with communications limited and teams operating independently. All eyes turn to me, an unspoken consensus that makes my stomach tighten with apprehension. I'm a maintenance worker turned saboteur, not a revolutionary leader. My technical skills created leverage, but strategic leadership requires different capabilities entirely. It should be council-based, I suggest instead. Distributed authority across specialties. Quinn for tactical, Dev for security, Fiona for coordination, myself for technical operations. No single point of failure. Like Mars itself, Fiona observes with approval. Interconnected systems, each essential, none controlling the others. 3 days to prepare, Quinn determines after assessing our resources and security considerations. Then we implement the environmental control operation and begin rebuilding our network. 3 days later, I move through the maintenance access tunnels of the executive dome with practiced efficiency, my hands remembering paths my conscious mind has never mapped. Beside me, Elias monitors security patterns on a specialized sensor designed to detect drone movements through structural vibrations rather than electronic signals. Patrol passing Sector 12, he reports quietly. Timing matches predicted pattern. 30-second window approaching. Reaching the environmental control room requires navigating 17 exposure points, each carefully timed to avoid security patrols. The process takes nearly 2 hours, painstaking progress that tests our patience and nerve. Finally, we reach the unmarked access panel that leads directly to our target. Beginning signal masking, Elias murmurs, activating a device that creates localized interference in the room's security systems. Not enough to trigger alarms, but sufficient to create a blind spot around the main control terminal. I access the panel, fingers moving with the certainty born from years of maintenance experience. The environmental systems respond to my technical credentials, still valid despite my fugitive status. Another oversight in UTA's security protocols. Earth executives never truly understand that those who maintain their comfort possess the knowledge to disrupt it. System accessed, I confirm, navigating through the control architecture to the specific subsystems governing the executive dome's environmental parameters. Beginning implementation. The operation we've designed is precisely calibrated, not an attack, not even sabotage in the traditional sense. Instead, I'm implementing subtle modifications to the environmental control algorithms that govern temperature, humidity, and atmospheric composition throughout the executive dome. Warning! Elias hisses suddenly. Non-standard security movement approaching from Eastern Corridor. Drone configuration we haven't seen before. My hands freeze momentarily over the control interface. Time to completion? 3 minutes for program implementation, 5 more for access masking, I calculate quickly. Can you extend the signal interference radius? Not without risking detection, he responds. Current parameters are already pushing safety margins. I make a split-second decision. Continue monitoring, I'll accelerate implementation and compromise on the access masking. They'll know someone accessed the system, but not specifically what changes were made. Working with increased urgency, I complete the core modifications to the environmental control algorithms, then initiate minimal access masking protocols. Not enough to completely hide our presence, but hopefully sufficient to obscure the exact nature of the changes implemented. 30 seconds until visual range, Elias warns. We need to move now. I disconnect from the system, carefully securing the access panel behind us as we retreat into the maintenance tunnel. The timing is precariously tight. We're barely back inside the service passage when the security drone passes the corridor outside the control room. New model, Elias observes through a pinhole observation port. Expanded sensor array. Likely improved detection capabilities. All the more reason to be elsewhere, I respond, already navigating toward our extraction route. Operation complete. Let's get back to the rendezvous point. 24 hours later, Fiona's monitoring display shows the environmental disruptions unfolding exactly as planned. Executive Dome residential sectors are experiencing increasing discomfort. Temperatures 6 degrees above optimal settings. Humidity approaching rainforest conditions. Subtle alterations to atmospheric composition, creating mild respiratory irritation for Earthborn executives unaccustomed to Martian air. They've attempted 3 separate automated diagnostic sequences, Elias reports with poorly concealed satisfaction. Each has returned normal operational parameters despite physical measurements contradicting the readings. They've assigned a technical team from mid-level maintenance, Fiona adds. But internal communications indicate those teams lack the specialized knowledge to address discrepancies between sensor readings and actual conditions. As predicted, UTA's response escalates as executive discomfort increases. By the 36-hour mark, they've attempted multiple technical approaches without success, each failure increasing the urgency of finding an effective solution. New development, Fiona announces, her tone sharpening with interest. UTA has issued a general communication addressed to, and I quote, technical specialists with environmental system expertise currently operating outside official channels. They're trying to contact us without explicitly acknowledging the MLF, Quinn interprets. The message specifies that appropriate terms can be arranged for resolution of current environmental anomalies, Fiona continues. They're requesting a response through lower-level communication nodes, which would allow anonymous connection. They've realized they need us, Dev says with satisfaction, just as planned. After careful consideration, we formulate our response, maintaining core demands while offering phased implementation timeframes to give UTA the appearance of controlling the process. The negotiation continues through 3 more exchanges, gradually approaching terms both sides can accept, at least temporarily. 72 hours after our operation began, with executive dome conditions now genuinely debilitating for Earthborn residents, final terms are established. Full implementation of the original agreement, including the Mars Governance Council, release of detained resistance members in 3 phases, and formal Martian representation in all infrastructure decisions through designated technical advisors. They're requesting immediate environmental system restoration as a gesture of good faith, Fiona reports, reading the final communication. With phased implementation of agreed terms to follow verification of system normalization. They've accepted the implementation sequence, Fiona confirms after our response is transmitted. First detainee release protocols are already being initiated, according to internal communications. I prepare the initial environmental system correction sequence, designed to partially restore executive dome conditions while maintaining sufficient discomfort to ensure continued motivation for fulfilling subsequent agreement terms. Wait, Elias interrupts suddenly, studying his communication monitor with increasing concern. Priority signal from our lower-level network. Dr. Mbeki is attempting contact through emergency channels. The message is brief but devastating. UTA security forces deployed to Elysium Research Facility, attempting patient relocation to secure zone, need immediate assistance or extraction, limited time window. My blood runs cold. They're going after my mother, I realize aloud, using her as additional leverage during negotiations. Standard UTA tactic, Quinn confirms grimly. Target family connections when direct approach proves insufficient. I need to go to Elysium, I state, already calculating transport options and security risks. The rest of you continue the negotiation implementation. Not alone, Quinn interjects firmly. 2-person team minimum for any field operation. I'll accompany you to Elysium while the others maintain negotiation protocols. The maintenance access tunnel leading into Elysium's research wing hasn't been properly serviced in years, another example of UTA's neglect of essential infrastructure. We navigate through narrow passages where exposed conduits and leaking pipes create hazardous conditions that would horrify Earthborn executives accustomed to their pristine environments. We reach a junction where maintenance access intersects with secondary research corridors. Quinn signals for caution as we verify the passage is clear before proceeding. The facility's environmental systems hum around us. Air filtration, temperature regulation, pressure maintenance, the essential functions that transform Mars's hostile atmosphere into habitable space. Wait, I whisper, hearing something beyond the normal mechanical sounds. Someone's coming. We press ourselves into a recessed equipment alcove as footsteps approach from the connecting corridor. Not the measured stride of security officers, but the hurried movement of someone attempting to avoid detection. Dr. Mbeki appears at the junction, her medical uniform exchanged for nondescript technical coveralls. Her expression shifts from tense vigilance to relief when she recognizes us. This way, she directs without preamble. Security patterns are changing. They've received new directives from Olympus City. We follow her through a series of increasingly narrow passages, eventually reaching a small chamber filled with rarely used research equipment. In the center, my mother sits in a specialized environmental chair that supports her respiratory function. Her face is thinner than when I last saw her, but her eyes remain sharp and alert. Kieran, she says, using my given name as always. A smile transforms her tired features, always causing trouble. Despite everything, the danger, the stress, the life-altering decisions, I find myself smiling back. Learned from the best. Dr. Mbeki interrupts our reunion with necessary urgency. Security protocols are escalating. They've requested verification of all patient locations within the next 20 minutes. We need to move before the discrepancy is discovered. We have transport waiting at the northern maintenance exit, Quinn informs her. Approximately 400 meters from our current position. Alternative routes if primary is compromised. My mother reaches for my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. I'm not the one you should be worried about, she says firmly. This is bigger than me, bigger than any of us. Mars needs you focused on what matters. You matter, I counter, the words emerging more intensely than intended. Of course I do, she responds with unexpected humor. But so do thousands of other Martians facing the same choices, the same hardships. I won't have my son abandoning their cause for one sick woman. We move through the back corridors of the research facility, Doctor. Mbeki guiding us through paths unknown even to my maintenance experience. My mother remains surprisingly composed, despite the clear strain of movement, her breathing labored but stable within the portable support system. UTA security alert, Quinn warns suddenly, monitoring facility communications. Patient verification protocol complete. They've identified the discrepancy. How long until they reach our position? Dr. Mbeki asks, already adjusting our route. Less than 5 minutes based on current deployment patterns, he responds. They're activating additional drones for area sweep. We increase our pace as much as my mother's condition allows, the tension mounting with each meter traveled. The northern maintenance exit remains frustratingly distant, our progress slowed by necessity rather than choice. There's an alternative, Doctor, Mbeki suggests as we pause at a junction to verify the path ahead. Atmospheric Research Laboratory has its own external access for equipment delivery. Closer than the maintenance exit, less likely to be monitored under current security protocols. As we approach the laboratory entrance, facility alarms activate, harsh, blaring sounds that indicate security protocols have escalated from search to active containment. The external airlock represents our last opportunity for uncontested exit before the facility locks down completely. Airlock cycling protocols require 2 minutes for pressure equalization, Dr. Mbeki warns as she initiates the sequence. We'll be vulnerable during that period. The laboratory door slides open. Sergeant Marcus Webb stands in the entrance, his UTA uniform immaculate despite the facility's escalating chaos. 2 security officers flank him, weapons ready but not raised. Maintenance worker Byrne, he says calmly, using my former title. This confrontation is unnecessary. Director Norris has authorized me to offer terms. What terms? I ask, positioning myself protectively in front of my mother and Dr. Mbeki. Full medical treatment for Moira Byrne at any UTA facility of your choosing. Webb states without reference to notes, clearly having memorized his authorized offer. Complete immunity from prosecution for Dr. Mbeki. Guaranteed safe passage to the location of your resistance leadership. The offer is suspiciously generous, particularly the last component. In exchange for what? Your technical expertise resolving the Executive Dome environmental crisis, he responds immediately, followed by your ongoing consultation on the automation implementation program. The true objective emerges, not merely capturing me or leveraging my mother, but co-opting my technical knowledge to advance the very program designed to eliminate Martian workers. Attempting to separate me from the resistance, I observe, the strategy transparent now. Technical collaboration in exchange for personal accommodations, while the strategic reduction continues for everyone else. Webb doesn't deny this interpretation. Individual solutions for individual concerns, The broader political issues remain separate negotiations. Except they're not separate, I counter, my mother's words resonating through my response. My technical knowledge belongs to Mars, not to me individually. It represents generations of Martian adaptation and ingenuity, not personal brilliance. The airlock behind us emits a subtle tone, indicating 50% completion of its cycling process. 1 minute remaining before external access becomes viable. Quinn catches my eye, communicating silently that he's prepared to create whatever diversion necessary to complete our extraction. My son doesn't speak for himself alone, my mother says suddenly, her voice stronger than I've heard in months. She maneuvers her environmental chair forward until she faces Webb directly. He speaks for Mars, for people like me who've given our health and our lives to building this world, while Earth corporations reap the benefits. Webb studies her with genuine attention, perhaps seeing for the first time the human reality behind UTA's abstract resource calculations. His expression shifts subtly, not quite sympathy, but recognition of complexity beyond his security directives. Your loyalty is admirable, he acknowledges, but consider the practical reality. The MLF cannot prevail against UTA's resources. Individual accommodation represents the best available outcome. For whom? My mother challenges. For the select few offered special treatment while the rest suffer? That's not victory. It's collaboration. The airlock signals 75% completion. Tension mounts as Webb clearly calculates his options, enforcing his directives through immediate action, or continuing this unexpected philosophical exchange while our extraction opportunity approaches. Even if I accepted your offer, I say, maintaining his attention, what guarantee exists that UTA would honor its terms? The negotiated agreement after our atmospheric operation was abandoned at the first opportunity. Director Norris authorized this offer personally, Webb insists, though something in his tone suggests uncertainty. Her authority is overridden by Earth headquarters whenever convenient, I finish for him. You know this as well as we do. You're offering terms you can't guarantee will be honored. The airlock signals 90% completion. Quinn subtly shifts his position, preparing for whatever comes next. Dr. Mbeki similarly moves to support my mother's environmental chair for rapid movement. Make your choice, Sergeant Webb, I state quietly. Force confrontation that endangers a sick woman and a doctor who's violated no laws except helping Martians. Or recognize that Mars belongs to those who've made it their home, not distant corporations that see us as expendable resources. Something resolves in Webb's expression, not quite decision, but acknowledgement of complexity. He consults his communication device briefly, then steps aside from the laboratory entrance, creating a gap between himself and his security officers. Medical emergencies take priority over security protocols, he states formally, the words clearly for the record rather than genuine belief. Patient transfer to specialized treatment facilities authorized under Section 47 of UTA medical directives. His security officers exchange confused glances but follow his lead, moving to flank the doorway rather than block it. The airlock signals complete cycling, its external door sliding open to reveal the Martian surface beyond, where our transport waits just visible in the distance. This individual accommodation, Webb adds quietly as we move past him toward the airlock, doesn't resolve the broader issues. Those require systemic change. I meet his gaze directly, recognizing the tentative acknowledgement in his statement. That's why we continue fighting, for systemic change, not individual exceptions. He nods almost imperceptibly, then turns away, already reporting the medical evacuation through official channels, creating the administrative fiction that will cover both our escape and his decision to permit it. Minutes later, we're aboard our transport, moving rapidly across the Martian surface toward a secure location beyond UTA's immediate reach. My mother's breathing stabilizes as Dr. Mbeki adjusts her environmental support system for transit conditions. "You know UTA will never forgive this," Quinn observes quietly. "Webb violated direct orders by allowing our extraction. They'll make an example of him. Or promote him for intelligent adaptation to complex circumstances," Dr. Mbeki suggests. UTA's not monolithic. There are factions within their structure that recognize the unsustainability of current policies toward Mars. The observation reminds me of a truth easily forgotten during revolutionary struggle. Our opponents aren't uniformly malevolent, but individuals operating within systems that shape and constrain their choices. Some, like Webb, retain capacity for nuanced assessment beyond ideology or orders. "What now?" my mother asks, ever practical despite her condition. "You've secured my safety, but what about the broader struggle? The environmental operation, the negotiations, the future of Mars?" "We continue," I respond simply. UTA believes they can separate individuals from collective action through targeted accommodations. We demonstrate that Martian solidarity can't be fractured so easily. As our transport speeds across the ancient plains of Mars, I look out at the stark beauty of the landscape. Red soil stretching toward distant horizons. The massive bulk of Olympus Mons receding behind us. The thin atmosphere creating the characteristic pinkish hue of Martian daylight. This is our world, not Earth's. Our home, shaped by generations of Martian labor, sacrifice, and adaptation. The path ahead remains difficult. UTA's resources dwarf our own. Their strategic position remains dominant. Their willingness to use force against resistance undiminished. But something fundamental has changed. Not just in UTA's calculations, but in the consciousness of Mars's people. The water redistribution, the atmospheric leverage, the environmental control operation, each demonstration of Martian capability has awakened recognition that Earth's authority isn't absolute, that Mars ultimately belongs to those who understand its systems, who've adapted to its realities, who've sacrificed to make it habitable. My mother takes my hand, her red-stained fingers intertwining with mine. The chemical signatures of Mars's industrial development mark both our skins, her from decades maintaining filtration systems, mine from continuing the work she began. These stains connect us to every worker who's built Mars into a home, who's shaped the red planet into a place where human life can flourish. "Your father would be proud," she says softly. "Not just of your resistance, but of why you fight. For everyone, not just yourself." As we continue across the Martian landscape toward whatever future awaits us, continued struggle, incremental victories, perhaps eventual liberation, I understand with perfect clarity that we've already won the most important battle. Mars has changed us, shaped us, marked us as its own, and in return, we've made an irrevocable claim to this world, not through Earth's legal frameworks or corporate authority, but through the fundamental bond between a people and the planet they call home. Our soil, our blood, our Mars.
Every story has an end, but there's always another waiting to be told. Subscribe to Steve's Stories for more sci-fi, dystopian, and war-driven adventures, from short tales to full novels. Like the video, hit the bell, and join me on this journey through worlds unknown.